I'm going to start recording. So this is our second session of the invisible zipper crossbody bag that we're making in this class. And last week we cut out or not last week, but last session, we cut out our pieces and we sewed a sample invisible zipper and made a little bag out of it. And we put in our invisible zipper into our bag with our lining. So today we got to get going. We've got quite a few things to do. I hope you guys are ready to go. We're going to cut. So we haven't cut out our straps yet, correct? Right? So the first thing I need you guys to do is cut your straps. I'm going to put it in the chat, the dimensions. So you're going to cut 2 pieces and we're going to sew them together so we can get a really nice long strap. They're 26.5 inches long by 2.25 inches wide. And you need to cut 2 of these. So if you want to fold the fabric in half, right sides together, and then cut 2 in one swipe, that's what you should do. If you're able to. If you can't do that with your fabric, then you might have to cut them separately. That's for the strap. And then for the tab, because we're gonna have the 2 tabs on both sides of our purse that holds the lobster claw, right? These 2 tabs here. So the 26.5 by 2 2.25 inches wide is our strap. And now we need to cut the tab. And the tab is that for you. It's 3 inches long. By 1.25 inches wide. So if you guys could cut both those right now really quick, I'll give you a few minutes. I'll give you about 5 minutes to get that cut. That'd be great. After you're done cutting those out, we are going to work on the strap. So we have to sew the 2 pieces together and sew the strap. So we'll do that. And then we'll sew the tabs. And then once those 2 things are done, then we'll go back to our bag and we'll finish up the bag.
So Amy, for the straps, it needs to be 2 pieces, right? You can't just make it double wide and just sew one side as a shortcut. Does it make it look bad if you did that?
If you want to make one piece that's 53 inches long, just fold it in half and then skip sewing the 2 pieces together, you can.
Oh, I see. It's actually supposed to be long. Okay, never mind. I was thinking we're sewing like 2 side pieces.
No, it's supposed to be 53 inches long.
Okay.
So if you have that much fabric and you can fold it in half and cut, you know, one 53-inch piece without doing the seam, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. I think I misunderstood the 2-piece part. So.
Okay, are you guys,
I just need a few more minutes. I'm almost.
need another minute? I'll give you guys couple, 2 more minutes, okay?
For the tab, is it just one?
Oh, sorry, cut 2.
Cut two, okay.
Yeah, everyone cut 2. Okay, you guys, we gotta move on. So the next step, I'm going to change my camera view. And I'm totally regretting choosing black because it's hard for you guys to see, but we'll do our best. So the next step is to take your 2 straps. We're gonna sew them together. And the way you do that is you lay one out like this, right side up. And then you take the other one and you lay it on top of it, right side down, making like a square, 90-degree angle. So you lay it right on top like this in the corner, and you pin the way I have pinned across the diagonal.
Well, they're both facing down.
Yeah, they're both facing each other, right sides together. So you end up getting this like, you know, like a right angle, you know, a 90-degree angle like this. And if you can see my pins right here, I've pinned across the diagonal. So I end up getting, this is my raw edge of my other side. There's like a square here, and I'm pinning across this diagonal, not this diagonal, not this one, this one. So starting at the top, if you're holding your two pieces just like me, sitting at your table with one piece going lengthwise and the other piece going down, you'll pin diagonal from the top down to the bottom piece. And that's where we're going to stitch. So then you're going to put your needle in here. And you're going to stitch right along here. That way, when you open this up, so then when you open this up, you have a strap.
The one from one corner to the next, I guess, right?
Yeah. So do you see how that turns out? And then you'll have this big seam allowance. We'll cut that off. But do you see how that works? Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I'm going to go to my sewing machine and sew mine. A little trick, make sure you put this, when you lay the top piece on top, just place it a little bit above the other piece. So there's a little bit hanging over. That way, when you fold it open, they're both flush on the sides. If you match up the raw edges on top of each other perfectly, when you fold it open, for some reason, for me at least, it ends up not being flush. It ends up being a little bit lower and it hangs off on this side. So I just pinned mine up a little bit higher, and then when I open it up, it's perfectly flush. So I'm gonna go sew mine right now, backstitch, sew, and then backstitch, and then I'm gonna go iron it. I'm gonna iron it, and actually before I iron it, I'm just gonna trim this off. So I'll show you guys that. I'll do it, but right now I'm gonna go sew. I'm not gonna take the camera with me. I'll just be sewing. I think it's self-explanatory, and just making my camera a little taller. Make sure you change your foot back to the regular foot if you were using your zipper foot. So now I'm just going to take my fabric scissors and I'm going to trim. I'm going to leave about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm just cutting this off, throwing it away, and I have about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to go to my ironing board and iron it open now.
When you sew the diagonal, do you just kind of eyeball it to see where the diagonal is?
Yeah, you could use your ruler and lay it across to give yourself a straight line if you feel more comfortable doing that. I just eyeballed it with the pins pinning across. You could draw in a chalk line and if you feel more comfortable. So we're going to be using our iron quite a bit right now. So the next step, prepping our strap after you press that seam open. So now my seam is nice and flat. You can kind of see if I can get the angle right. And I have my seam allowance on the back. We don't care about finishing that because we're going to fold it. We're going to cover it up. So then the next step is to go to your ironing board and you're going to fold your strap in half and iron it down. And we did this when we made that smartphone bag, if any of you remember doing that. So I'm working with my wrong side up. My seam side up is it's facing me. And I'm going to fold it in half, my strap, the width. I'm going to fold the width in half and I'm going to iron it down. So my right, I'm folding wrong sides together. So this fold line that we're making is kind of a guide because we're going to open it up and we're going to fold the two edges in to that center line. We're just creating a strap. And if it might feel familiar to you because we did it when we made the strap for the Crossbody bag. We did the same technique. So now that I have it folded in half, that's my guide now. So I'm going to open it up. Again, this is my right side that's showing. I'm going to open it up to the wrong side. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold one side in to the half line. See if I can make this so you guys can see. So one side is folded in to that fold line, and then I'm going to fold the other side in to the fold line. So and then when I fold it in half, I get this. So we're kind of making our own. This is the same way you make bias tape as well. So I'm going to fold in one side to the half, the other side to the half, and then I sandwich them on top of each other. Is that clear? So after you sandwich them like this, you need to pin. You need to iron it and pin it because we're going to stitch along the edge. We're going to stitch on both edges to create our strap. So it's going to look like this when it's finished. They're stitching right here on this edge, down here, and they're stitching up here on this edge. So we're going to stitch on both folded edges and make this long strap. So right now I'm just going to iron. I folded in the two sides into the center. In the center, I have that guideline where I ironed it. And now I'm just going to take my iron and iron it all down into place. I have to move my camera. If you guys need me to demo anything or do a close-up or anything over again, just holler out. I'm happy to do that. If you can't see or you need me to move something or anything you need, just let me know. So I'm actually ironing my two sides together to the center first. I'm going to do that first. Then I'm going to iron them folded closed. and then I'm gonna pin it. So it's a little bit of a process. And the same, we're gonna do the same process when we make the tabs. So the trick is just to make everything even, because if you get it all even, the same width of all the folds, then your strap will be even too. It'll look more professional if everything's even. And of course, a really hot iron makes all the difference. Of course, you might feel the pain a little bit if your fabric gets really hot, but it does make a difference. Okay, so I finished ironing mine. Now I'm going to pin it. Just so that it doesn't pop open while I'm sewing. I don't need a lot of pins, just enough to keep it down. It depends on your fabric, if your fabric's holding the iron really well or not. Oh, you know what? I forgot to show you guys something. So the ends of our strap have to be finished. So, and that's because we're actually going to sew the strap together right here. It's going to be, we're going to feed it through the loop in the lobster claw, and we're going to fold it up and stitch it down right here. So this needs to be finished, the edge of it. And I'm sorry, when I was at the ironing board, I forgot. So this edge here, we need to iron that up like this. So you're going to open it up and you're going to iron the edge over just like 1/4 of an inch. So you have that nice fold, so it's finished. Then you're going to fold your two sides in and fold it in half like that. That way, this is finished. It's not raw. Okay, sorry for that, you guys. So you're gonna fold this, you're gonna open it up. And you don't have to open up the whole thing, just the end, and fold it down 1/4 inch and press it. Then you can fold your two sides together and then fold it together. So I'm going to go back and fix that on both of mine. Is that clear for everyone? Just give me a holler.
Yes.
Okay.
A quick question, because I'm still catching up on the ironing part. When you iron the fold back to the center, to do that bias tape look.
Yes. Yeah.
When you iron it, do you iron both sides at the same time, or do you kind of do one side and like, is there like a tip to make it even?
Yeah, I just noticed. So first fold it in half, so you have that fold line in the
Right, I
center.
have the fold line.
Okay, then do one side at a time.
Oh, so it's better to do one side at a time, right? Because I was like trying to do both, and I'm like, is that?
Yeah, so then do one side at a time. Fold one side in and iron it, and go maybe you go halfway down, and then fold the other side in and iron it and go halfway down.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I think it'll be easier that way. Okay, so I finished ironing and pinning my strap. So again, my ends are folded in. I know it's hard to see, but I folded this edge so it's not raw in first before I folded all the other edges in. And then you definitely need a pin to keep that together. And then I did it on this end too, because we want these ends to be clean finished. So now I'm going to go to my sewing machine and I'm going to start on one end and I'm going to pick a side because there's two sides, this side and that side, this side and that side. I'm going to stitch down this folded edge right on that edge, right next to it, all the way down, back stitch, and then all the way down. And then I'm going to do it again. I'm going to come start over on this side and stitch this side all the way down. So the first side, you first want to stitch the two sides that are sandwiched together. Stitch that first, then stitch the fold side. So we want to get these two sides locked in together with a stitch first before you sew the other side. So I'm going to go do that right now. And then when we're done sewing the strap, then we'll start working on the tabs, these two tabs. Hopefully you guys have those ready. And then when we're done with the tabs, then we can insert them into the bag and start sewing and cut our gussets. We're going to cut these gussets like we did in that other class when we made that large bag. And we're going to start sewing it all up and then we'll be done. So as I'm sewing, I'm actually needing to kind of make sure that my folds are all even and matching. I want to get it nice and straight, and I want to have a nice clean strap that looks professional as possible. So I finished sewing one side of my strap, and I'm gonna go to the ironing board and iron it again, just so that it's nice and flat, and it's just gonna be easier to sew the other side when it's ironed another time. Now back to the sewing machine. And I'll sew the other side. Right on the edge of the fold. So, and you guys, a little trick, the edge here where we have the end of the strap where we had to fold it in to have a finished edge. It's kind of thick there. So I started down. I didn't start at the very end. I started sewing right here, not at the edge here. And I didn't backstitch to the edge. I just sewed all the way down. So now I'm going to go back and finish the edge. The first time I sewed on this side, I started here and then I backstitched to the end and then I went forward and it kind of got bunched up because of the thickness. So that's why this time I did it the other way. I started here and just finished. I didn't backstitch. So this is unfinished right here. I'm going to go back and just put it in my sewing machine and sew forward over it. And we've done that.
To finish, is it a finished edge on both sides or just one?
Yeah, both sides.
Okay.
Make sure you trim all your threads really well because all of this is going to show, it's going to be exposed on our first. So I don't like having little threads showing, so I'm just making sure that everything is nice and neat. Neat as possible. Okay, so if you want, you could iron it again one last time to make sure that it's nice and flat and ready to be a strap. So I'm gonna iron mine one more time, just really quick, just a quick pass. My fabric has stretch in it. So I'm gonna have a strap that grows, kind of stretchy. Okay, so that's the strap. So then now you should have this nice finished long piece with the stitches on both sides of it. So it should look like, I'll show you this one. Should look like that. And the ends are finished. So it's hard to see with the black, but this is folded. It's not a raw edge on both ends. Because what we're going to do is they're going to slide them through the lobster claw and like this and stitch it down. Okay, so I'm putting that strap to the side and now we're going to work on the tabs. So I've already done one. So when it's finished, it's going to look like this. The edges on the tab are raw. You don't have to fold those edges in. So it's going to look like this when it's finished. It's only stitched on one side. So the tab is easier than the strap. We're only stitching it on one side and we're leaving the edges raw. So we're going to treat it the same way we did the strap. We're going to go to the ironing board. And we're going to fold it in half. So you want to fold, I have the wrong side facing me. This is the wrong side. I'm going to fold it in half. So now the right side is facing me. And then I'm going to use that half, that fold line in the center as my guide. So I'm going to fold one side in to the center. And we can give that a press. And then I'm going to fold the other side to the center. And give it a press. And then I'm going to fold them both on top of each other. Make a nice little sandwich. And then I'm going to put a couple pins in. So I need the pins to hold it down while I sew it. I just want to make sure it's nice and even. You might not even need some pins depending on your fabric. You can just go straight to the sewing machine if you want. So now I'm going to stitch right here. I want to stitch these two folds together. So right along the edge, just like we did with our strap, these two folds. We don't need to do another stitch on this side because it's just not needed. We're just it's gonna be a little tab like that inserted into the first. So I'm gonna go to the sewing machine and finish this, and then I'll be right back. Okay, I'm gonna give it a quick iron. I always like to iron after I sew something, the seams open or. Nice iron. All right, so now my tabs are done and I'm going to go to my purse. So you can put the tabs to the side. And I'll be right back. I need to check something. I don't know where my little lobster claw hooks are. I thought I had another pair. Okay, well, when we get to that step, I'll have to look for those. Oh, here they are. Oh, cool. Okay. You will need your lobster claw hooks pretty soon. Not yet. I had to make sure I had mine. Okay. So now we'll take our purse and I've already started the first pinning mine. So yours doesn't look like this yet. The first step is to pin these, is to lay it open like this. So you're gonna put it inside out and lay it open with your two lining pieces on top of each other, right sides together, and your two body fabrics on top of each other. So, and what I want you to do is start pinning from here. So you're going to, and your zipper needs to be open. You want to have your zipper open. If it's closed, what's going to happen is you're going to get locked out of your bag. So make sure your zipper's open. And then you're going to lay out your bag like this, and you're going to match up your zipper teeth. So I'm looking at my zipper teeth and I'm making sure that they're on top of each other, matched up the way they would if they were closing. And I'm matching my zipper tape on top of each other. So I don't want to pin it like this. You know what I mean? Where the tapes aren't on top of each other or the other way. I want them matching. So I want my zipper tape to be matching like that. So that's where I start pinning. And I put my first pin in there. And then I go to the other side and I do the same thing on the other side. Are you guys ready for this next step? Do you want me to pause and wait, or are you guys good to go?
I'm still catching up, so, but I'm always behind. I'll watch the video later. Everybody's on top of it.
Melissa and Pauline and Raj, where are you guys? How are you guys? Where I should find out where you guys are. I don't want to go too fast. Okay. I'll show you one more step and then I'm going to go to the bathroom and then that'll give you guys a chance to catch up. Carol, at least. So after you pin these two sides, you're not going to do this yet. You're just pinning these two sides. Now you're going to create these squares. So I'll show you on my lining side. I haven't done my lining yet. So you want to make sure that your fabric is matching. So if it's like way off like that, that wouldn't be a good thing. You want to make sure these corners are pretty much matching. If they're not, then you need to, you know, adjust it a little. If they're just slightly off, I would just put the two corners together with your fingers and then maybe put a couple pins here to hold the corners together. If it's way off, you can trim it a little bit. So I have, mine's a little bit off right here, not too much, just 1/4 of an inch. I'm just gonna actually trim that. So it's matching a little better. And now I can turn it back. So, So you can either trim it off so they're matching, or maybe put a couple of pins in to hold it together. So then the next step is to create our little gussets. We did this for that bag we made this summer, that large bag. And so this might seem familiar. Anyway, we're making smaller gussets because this is a smaller bag. So they're going to be 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. So I'm going to use my ruler and measure 1.5 inches wide and 1.5 inches long. So it's a square. I'm creating a square and I'm just drawing it in. 1.5 by 1.5. I made a square, and now I'm going to do the same thing over here. On this side. And then I'm going to take my scissors and cut. So with the chalk, I just made my square, my lines, and now I'm going to cut. So I know some of you actually saved these little bits and you guys made tabs with them, or I can't remember if it was Lindsay or Pauline or Melissa, someone like made something with them. On the body fabric, it actually has interfacing on it. So I just threw mine away, but they were so thick, I didn't really know what I could make. But you know, your lining fabric, you know, you could save them and make something with them if you wanted. So the tabs that we made are 3 inches long. So unfortunately we couldn't use these for the tabs because they're not long enough. So that's why I did that. So I created my gussets on my lining. You're going to do the same thing on your body fabric, the 1.5 by 1.5 inch gusset square. So I did that on my lining, both sides, and do it on your body fabric, both sides. So then the next step is to finish pinning like I've done here. I started pinning here, across. So now I'm going to pin my lining because we're going to go to the sewing machine. And we're going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So we don't have, if we do a 1/4 inch seam allowance, we won't have to trim anything or worry about it. We just have a little small seam allowance. Nothing's wasted. So on the lining, I'm going to actually need an opening, right, to get my hand in, to turn it right side out. So I'm only going to pin just like 1 inch on each side, and I'm going to leave this open. I'm just going to do 1 pin on each side. And this you don't sew yet. You're going to leave these little boxes or squares open. And the lining, I'm just going to sew right here, like, you know, 1 inch or less, 1 inch or less, because this is my opening for my hand. And over here, I'm just stitching here. I'm leaving this open. You don't stitch that yet. You're not stitching that. So there's one more thing I need to do before I can sew is I need to take my tabs that we made and fold them in half, and I'm going to insert them into the body before I sew. So I want it to be 1 inch below my zipper. So I'm actually kind of just eyeballing it. And I'm matching my raw edge of my fold with the edge of my fabric. And you're placing the zipper loop inside. Okay, you're not putting it like this. You don't want to put it like that, because then the tab would be on the wrong side, right? The tab goes inside. the body fabric there. And I'm going to make it about an inch from the zipper. And I'm going to pin it into place. And it's very thick. So, but we went through pretty good. So I'm going to use my ruler and just check. Yeah, it's about an inch. So now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I want to insert my tab. So I'm folding it in half. Oops. And I'm just going to stuff it inside about an inch below my zipper. And I'm making sure that the tabs are like on top of each other. So it's really thick. I don't want them to smush out. Let's see, how did I do it? Yeah. Up a little bit more. Okay, so now I have my tabs pinned in place. And I've pinned all across this side, the other side, the bottom here, and then just these two pins here. And now the next step is to go to the sewing machine. But I'm gonna go take a quick potty break and I'll be right back, you guys. Okay, I'm back. It is cold outside, you guys. Crazy cold. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the sewing machine and I'm gonna start sewing here actually. Put my needle in here and I'm gonna sew 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way up. Now this is where it's tricky because remember we have our zipper here and we don't want to break needles, and so most of you should be able to get over the teeth and the tape pretty well. Make sure that your zipper pull is not in there, because that's, you know, that definitely would break your zipper, break your needle. So I'm just making sure my slider and my zipper pull aren't in the area where I'm going to be sewing. So there, I closed my zipper a little bit so it's not in the way, but I still have a big opening. So I'm going to come up to here and I'm going to sew over it. And again, I'm only doing a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so I'm kind of only on the tape. And then I'm going to sew down here and then I'm going to stop right here, stop here. And then I'm going to start, put my needle in over here on this corner and I'm going to sew up to here and stop. And then I'm going to put my needle in here and sew to this corner, stop. And then I'm going to come up here, put my needle in, and then sew this side. And again, I'm going to go very carefully over my tape here. You could even just skip going over it. You could just sew up to the teeth and then take your needle out and sew the rest of the way this way. So you don't have to actually sew over it. I think when we did those bags, those gusset bags, all of you guys did okay with it. I was the one that had issues. My sewing machine, my needle broke. So when we get, when I get there, I'll let you know what I do. And if you guys have any questions when you get to that part, you know, feel free to ask. So I'm not going to take my camera with me unless you guys ask me to. So I just sewed over my teeth and tape, or what was there of my teeth, and I did just fine. I went really slow. So you guys should be fine too. All right, so I finished sewing all around the sides. Do you guys have any questions? My next step is to iron. If you don't have any questions, I'm gonna go iron these edges here as best as I can. I'm going to go to the ironing board and I'm gonna iron like this. Since I can't get into there, I'm gonna just push this seam back and iron it like that. And I'm gonna do the same thing all the way around. So let's see if I can put this with me so you can see. So I just have it laying flat and I'm pushing this, I'm sort of cheating here. I'm pushing one side of the seam allowance back. And I'm able to kind of press my seam open. Cheater's method. And after I'm done opening up the seams with my iron, pressing it open, then we'll sew those little gussets together. We'll sew those corners together and create our little gusset. You could also turn it inside out at this point. I mean, right side out and kind of see how it looks. Now, if you want to check, make sure that the tabs are in there okay. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to skip that step. I'm going to be a risk taker. So now we're going to actually close up these little gussets. Oh, you can't see. Here. So we have this. And now what we're going to do is open it up, take our fingers, put them in and pull it apart like that. And we're sort of pinching it together and we're going to open these two seams. There's a seam here and a seam on this side. And we're going to match them up. And pin. So I'm going to sew this little pinched gusset on the sewing machine right across. And so right across here like this, a straight line, 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay. It's got a little crooked on this guy, so I'm going to fix it. Taking it out, it should be a straight line. This should be nice and straight. Mine was kind of angled, that's why I took it out to fix it. And I think if I just open this up more, it'll be easier. So now I have more of this straight line. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So now I have those 2 gussets pinned and I'm gonna sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance straight across. I'm gonna do the same thing on the lining. I can do the exact same thing on the lining. I'm going to pin that now as well, so I can sew them both at the same time. And we only have about 15 minutes left, so we should be able to finish in time. We got to keep moving. Again, any questions from anyone?
I'm mostly watching at this point because I'm a little behind, a lot behind actually.
Okay, no
But
worries.
I'll watch your video when you post it to finish up.
Okay. These gussets are so small, I'm having so much trouble. Easier when they're bigger. Okay, so now I have the lining ones done too. I still have my opening, so I can get, I'm gonna have to get in there to turn it right side out. So I'm gonna go sew these 2 up on the sewing machine and then turn it right side out. And then we're gonna take our strap and our 2 lobster clasps and attach them to the tabs and stitch the strap to it, and then we're done. So I should be able to finish this by the time class is over. So I'm just gonna go over to the sewing machine and complete this step. Okay, so I finished sewing my gussets and I'm just gonna trim them a little bit. There's not a lot of seam allowance, but I have all these threads because my fabric frays a lot. And so the final step is so fun, attaching the little strap and the hook. I think it's fun. So I used super difficult fabric, really stiff and difficult. I didn't press my gussets. You can use that little trick that I showed you to press your gussets if you want to get them more crisp. I didn't take the time to do that just now. We do need to sew our lining closed. So I just want to get mine turned out right side out first. There's the tab. So that turned out nice, one tab. Get in there and whoa, my other tab's missing. Hmm. You know what? My tab, it got stuck on the inside. Woe is me. I don't even know how that happened. So I have to go back and fix that. So, but first I'm going to see how it's looking. See if I can get this closed. So I'm actually pretty happy with it. It looks pretty cute and lining's nice and shiny. It stands up pretty well. Make sure that you guys, these two seams match here so that this fabric, you know, because we made this contrast fabric on mine, on this side, it's not matching up. And the black is taller. So you don't want that to happen. I have to go back and fix this side anyway. Something went wrong on this side. So I'm going to turn mine inside out and fix it. I don't think I'm going to do it now. It's going to take too much time. But I will show you how to close your lining. We've done this several times. So it's pretty much a review for you guys, but what you do is you just go to the ironing board. I'm folding my raw edges in. They're at their 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm just going over to my iron. And then give it a press. And then you should take thread that matches your lining. Right now I have black thread and I don't want a big black line here showing. So I'm going to change my thread to ivory, and then I'm just going to put it in the sewing machine under the presser foot. And I'm going to stitch right here on the fold, and you're going to have a little top stitch that's showing, but if you use matching thread, it's not going to be that obtrusive, and it'll be on the inside of your purse. So again, you just fold the raw edges into themselves like this, iron it flat, and then get matching thread on your sewing machine, and you're just going to stitch right on top of the fold here, this little distance here, and that's how you close up the lining. And I have a big boo-boo. I don't know, somehow my tab disappeared. So I'll go back and fix that later. But right now I want to show you how to put the strap on. So after you close the lining and push everything out, you should have this nice little bag. Then you take your strap . And your lobster claw. I'm going to just show you one side because I only have one tab. And attach the claw. This part that opens up, the lobster claw, that's going to go on your tab on your purse. So the tabs, you just click it on like that. This little D-ring here, that's where your strap's going. So you have to kind of push your strap through the D-ring to squish it in there. And then you're going to fold it up like that. Fold it up like that. And you're going to stitch right along the top here. So I folded it up about an inch. So it's folded up about an inch. That way it sits nice and flat. If you want to, you really need it to be an inch because it's easier to sew. If you do it any less than an inch, you're going to have trouble getting your sewing machine. So getting your presser foot in there. So I folded it up an inch, and then I'm just stitching right here on the top. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And then you're all done. And you can always take the straps off. If you don't like the strap, you can just pop it off. So I'm going to take it off right now just for the sewing. So I can sew that piece. I can get it off. Okay. So I'm going to pin this and go to the sewing machine. I don't even need a pin. I'm not even going to pin it. I'm just going to hold it with my finger and go stitch right across here with black thread. I'm going to do the same with my other claw too. I'm going to do both at the same time. So I just sewed over like twice because I want to make sure it's attached really well. So it's pretty thick, so take your time. And I went over it about 2 times. I have a really good, I have it secured correctly. So then when I do the other side, I want to make sure my strap's not twisting. So I'm just checking to make sure the strap's not twisting when I attach the other lobster claw. Okay, so now both of the lobster claws are attached. And you can easily, all these threads and things sticking in the fabric, easily attach it to your purse. Any questions, you guys? Carol, are you just watching?
I'm just watching.
I don't know what I did on the other side. For some reason, my tab didn't come out. It got stuck. I have to go back and open that up. I'm also having trouble getting my zipper closed, so. Pauline, Melissa, oh, Raj is gone. How are you guys doing? Oh, you know what? My fabric has 2 layers and my tabs got caught in that second layer of the fabric. That's what happened. All right, well, you guys, I'm going to switch the camera and, oh, you guys are all gonna finish with the video, okay. We'll go ahead and finish with the video, and I'm sorry, you guys, that I'm trying to undo mine, that my tab got messed up and I'm not able to show you the finished purse. But now I see what happened to me. And I can easily fix it. But this is how it's going to look when it's finished. You should have your little gussets here and your tabs. When you attach the strap, it looks like this. And the tabs should be like this, about an inch down. And that's it. I'm going to stop the recording.